What's up YouTube, Del here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you an update to my favourite deck in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Today is an update, of course, for Dark Magician. So as you can see with this particular version, this is Dark Regenesis, and the reason for that is there's nice lines of synergy between the Regenesis and the Dark Magician cards. There are Regenesis cards that say if you control a monster with 2500 original attack or defense, you can summon them to the field, and then of course there is the Regenesis Archfiend that allows you to reveal a monster with 2500 attack or defense in the hand, to then special summon it, and then search out your other Regenesis monsters. As a note, this deck is built purely for fun. It does not respect Droll running around in this format, as it wants to do a lot of searching. So if you are very concerned on it and you do really want to play this deck, I would highly advise that you would main deck a Call by the Grave, a Crossout Designator with Droll and Lockbird, and then maybe even Salesban, as that is its biggest weak point. It has a lot of aggression and a lot of consistency to play through a lot of different hand traps, apart from the Floodgate-esque ones in the form of Droll and Lockbird. So, with all that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, and explain why we've got it so you have a better idea of what this particular synergy will do and how it works so well together. There's also a very nice little small spicy engine that I'll explain as we go through, and an alternative to that engine that you can play if you don't have access to those cards. So starting off with Dark Magician. So of course you are going to want to be rocking two of this. You can play three if you want to. I feel that it gets a little bit more cloggy because you don't want this card to be your reveal. You want this card to be the monster on the field that is 2500 attack, and you have very easy access to it through Magician's Souls, but it's still one of them core pieces in order to start utilizing some of your fusion monsters. It can be utilized as rank 7 fodder. It can also be revived with your Eternal Soul, so it's still the core centerpiece of the entire deck. The one card that we have now bumped up to 3 and maxing out on, because this is the card you want to be your reveal in the hand, is free Illusion of Chaos. Now the reason this one is so good to be the reveal is you want this to be the reveal for your Regenesis Archfiend. Get the Regenesis Archfiend to the field, search out your Sage, because then that will set you up your Omni Negate, or search you out any of the other Regenesis cards that you feel going to be more useful. Then if you don't get hit by Droll, you can reveal Illusion of Chaos and then work your way into a Magician's Soul or of course a Magician's Rod. Because if you're going to be starting off with Illusion of Chaos and you reveal that first, then search yourself out a Rod or of course a Magician's Souls, and your opponent Drolls you, that's the worst possible outcome, because then straight away if you were to search out Rod, that's completely useless. If you searched out Magician's Souls, the only thing you're going to be able to do is get Dark Magician to the field, which is only going to be quite useful if you have access to the Eye of Timaeus or Timaeus in general, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So you want this to be the reveal in the hand for your Regenesis, and then if you survive the Droll, because this is going to be the most important search that you resolve in the entire deck right now, then you can start going into the Illusion of Chaos. Our main and only real starter of the entire deck is Magician's Rod. I really do hope that in the future we get an upgrade to this, or we get a supporting card for this as well, so that we can play 3 Magician's Rod and then 3 of another monster that can become another starter. Yes, of course, Magician's Souls does do its job quite well. The only other thing that I am really disappointed about this card is that it never got the quarter century upgrade that everything else did. So this one definitely gets overlooked quite a lot in the whole Dark Magician-esque kind of capabilities. This one is on specifically normal summon, whereas I'd love us to get a Dark Magician card that can be special summoned a little bit more frequently, but then I suppose you probably fall down to Magician's Soul on that side. Speaking of which, 3 Magician's Souls, not much more really needs to be said about this, pretty standard. Send your Dark Magician from deck to the grave, or pretty much any of your level 6 or higher spellcasters to the graveyard, and then you can summon back a Dark Magician Girl, or of course you can summon back a Dark Magician. Or you just summon it to the field, send spells and traps and draw cards. Then the 1 Timaeus United Dragon. This card is actually really, really important in this build. So this lets you fusion summon any fusion monster, and you don't have to use itself. You just have to use monsters from the hand or field. So that's when you can start accessing stuff like your Guardian Chimera. You can access loads of your other Dark Magician fusion monsters as well. So it does become very, very important. And leaving this on the field as well as a 2800 beta is just such a good card for the deck as well. It's entirely up to you on how you want to play it and how you want to utilize it, but I feel 1 is more than enough. If you want more consistency, of course you can play the Bestials. I decided not to play the Bestials in this version and then morph for something like a side deck, but this card is still very easily searchable with Soul Servant as well. Speaking of which, we are maxing out on our Soul Servant, playing 3 of this. Now there's actually a very, very good clause on this one. So you place 1 card on the top deck from the hand, deck or graveyard that is Dark Magician, or mentions Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl except itself. Now it's very important, this is going to be one of the first times that we're going to relate to a card that lists Dark Magician Girl, and I'm going to be showing you that very, very shortly. And it is quite important because being able to put a card that lists Dark Magician Girl onto the top of the deck, drawing into it, can then just search you off a chain of events for your searching, summoning, and getting a monster with 2500 attack. We then have the one Dark Magical Circle. The other important thing as well, actually, I should mention on this one, is it lets you draw cards equal to the number of cards you control that are Palladium monsters, Dark Magician, and or Dark Magician Girl. So again, it's very important that a card becomes a certain name. So if you haven't really got the guess yet, you will find out shortly. One Dark Magical Circle, I'm hoping that in the future, we already know that we are getting more support that make this more consistent, but we need cards that are going to replace these engine, like non-engine cards that we play, so that Dark Magical Circle can go back to being a free of. Like, I missed the day of being able to activate Dark Magical Circle and actually resolving it. We're way past that point now, but just because there are so many different Dark Magician spells and traps that are less reliant than current meta cards that you need to play or current format cards, that you really want to be able to play a Dark Magician deck that is something along the lines of 31 Dark Magician cards that like Dark Magical Circle can reveal and get use out of, and then 9 cards that aren't. So the consistency of this card just increases, but we're just not at that point, sadly. One Secret Dark Magic, again, another card that really deserves an upgrade. I know it's getting an alternative art, so hopefully that is going to become an alternative art that will be a higher rarity. Even if it is one of the ones where, I know we don't get Quarter Centuries anymore, but if it's one of them cards that is like, oh, the alt art is only in Starlight Rare, hopefully it's relatively cheap and easy to pick up, because this definitely deserves an upgrade. This is obviously quite important as well, because it doesn't lock you into specifically summoning a Dark Magician fusion monster, which is where you can play Guardian Chimera. It just needs you to use Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl on the field or hand, and again, very important that a card becomes Dark Magician Girl. One Eternal Soul. Pretty straightforward. And then the spicy engine that I have been mentioning. We play one Dark Magician Girl, the Magician's Apprentice. Why do we play this? Well, you get to special on this card from hand by discarding any card, and if you do, its name becomes Dark Magician Girl. Now I know that sounds quite a lot like Apprentice Illusion Magician Girl, so why are we not playing Apprentice Illusion? Apprentice Illusion will then search you out a Dark Magician, which gets you a monster with 2500 attack. The reason for that is Dark Magician Girl, the Magician's Apprentice will work its way into the Shining Sarcophagus. So pretty much the equivalent of Apprentice Illusion into Dark Magician. Absolutely fine. But what Shining Sarcophagus will do as an additional bonus is that will then allow you to search out the Archfiend's Advent. Again, a lot of people are going to be like, why aren't you playing the Shining Sarcophagus Dark Magician? The reason for that is because we only have 3 normal summons in the deck, all of them being Magician's Rod, being able to search out a card like Archfiend's Advent that can be normal summoned is very, very important. Because what you can do now is if you don't open up Magician's Rod, but you open up Dark Magician Girl and something like your Regenesis Archfiend, is you can very easily go, discard a card, summon down the Magician's Apprentice. This becomes Dark Magician Girl, which straight away makes your Soul Servant live. It means that Soul Servant can also stack this card. This will then search you out into your Shining Sarcophagus. Shining Sarcophagus can then search you out your Archfiend's Advent. Archfiend's Advent is you can normal summon this card without tribute if you control Shining Sarcophagus, which you will do at that point. So you then get to normal summon down the Archfiend's Advent as a 2500, but first of all you would reveal it in the hand to summon down your Archfiend, get off what you need to, and then you can normal summon down the Archfiend's Advent. It's still a very good card going second. For those of you that are unfamiliar with it, is if it is normal or special, you get to target one monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase. But that monster cannot attack unless you control Shining Sarcophagus when this effect was activated, which at that point, 9 times out of 10, you probably will. The benefit of that as well, I also felt it was quite nice having like a Summon Skull back in a Dark Magician-esque deck. I felt that it did kind of give you that feel. The only downside of a card like this is it's not Dark Magician Girl in the graveyard, it's only on the field. And it will only gain attack for monsters that that are listed on Shining Sarcophagus. So obviously you'd only get 300 off, or the list Shining Sarcophagus, sorry, so you'd only get 300 off of this. But that's very irrelevant, that's not really what you're aiming to do. Just being able to treat this as Dark Magician Girl on the field is very, very important. The only downside of Shining Sarcophagus is you can only add from the deck to the hand. So once you've done this line of play, the search of Shining Sarcophagus is irrelevant, but your opponent doesn't know that. The second effect of this is also quite important. So if your opponent specials on monster or monsters from the graveyard, it sets you in down state, you get to target a spell card, discard a spell card to then target one of those monsters and send it to the graveyard. In this version, you're playing a lot of spells, so actually being able to send them can be quite useful. So that's it for the Dark Magician-esque cards and the Shining Sarcophagus cards. So Yugi and Yugi's grandpa coming together, I think, works really nicely. Moving on to Regenesis, which could obviously be like an evil version of Kyber, I guess. We are playing 3 Regenesis Archfiend. So for those of you unfamiliar with this one, you reveal a monster with original 2500 attack or defense in hand, special summon this card. This is a level 8. On normal or special, you get to search your deck, or from your Banish Zone as well, to add a Regenesis card except itself. During your opponent's end phase, if this card's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you get to add it back from the hand. So if you were to use something like your Secrets of Dark Magic to fuse during your opponent's turn, you can add it back. But what this is going to constantly give you is free resource to keep on going, which is why we are also playing the other Regenesis monsters in the form of Sage, being your Omni Negate to send another Regenesis card, and your Dragon, which the great thing about this one is your Sage is a 7, your Dragon's an 8, but the Dragon is just constant free Dragon fodder, because if you have it during your turn, then you can summon itself down. That's a 2500 attacker. Then if you use its effect to deal with one of your opponent's spells and traps, or if you use it as fusion material during your opponent's turn, as long as it is sent to the graveyard, you then just get to add it back, so then you get to summon it back down again the next turn. You just constantly keep looping it around. And then the other 7 is the Warrior. This can also be used as fusion material, so if you don't use this effect to tribute it to return a card from the field to the hand, you can also use it as fusion material and then just loop it back, so it's just free real estate, basically. And then the last monster we play is the Regenesis Lord. So this is a little bit less consistent in this particular version in comparison to a Kashtira version. So if you wanted to get this deck back down to 41 cards, you could cut out the Regenesis Lord. But this one must be special summoned by banishing a face-up monster with original 2500 attack and defense. So the only monster you have that has that is of course going to be your Archfiend or any of your other Regenesis. You don't really want to be banishing your Sage, Warrior or your Dragon unless you have a Regenesis code in the graveyard to banish it and add it back. And we're not going to be relying on Regenesis code because the lock of the extra deck can be a little bit more damaging for the Dark Magician strategy. On top of that as well, is during the battle phase, you'll gain 2500 attack, so it goes up to 5k, and it lets you set a Regenesis spell or trap from the deck. So if you set a Regenesis, you get a free search, and if you set Birth, you're going to get a constant every single turn, sending these from deck to the grave to then get a Book of Moon to your opponent and then adding them back to the hand. Speaking of which, we are playing free Regenesis, so add a Regenesis from the deck to the hand, or if you control a monster with 2500 original attack and defense, you get to add, if you already control a Regenesis, you get to add a monster with 2500 attack and defense from the deck to the hand. You get to banish it from the graveyard except the turn it was sent there, and then you can target one of your Regenesis monsters in the graveyard and special summon it. One Regenesis code. This card, in my opinion, is still one of the best for the Regenesis strategy. The issue is when you're playing a hybrid deck like this that isn't Kashtiras or something that relies on the extra deck a little bit more, you can't rely on this card because you don't really want to be leaving a Magician's Rod in attack. You don't really want to be leaving a Magician's Souls on the field. You need to be using them as link fodder or any other type of fodder. So this is one of the cards that you would search out off the back of the Lord or off the back of the Archfiend if you need to push for an OTK or if you're planning to push during your opponent's turn. So special on the Regenesis from the deck, but send it to the graveyard during the your opponent's end phase. Until the end of the next turn, after this card resolves, you can't special from the extra deck. And then during your main phase, if this card's in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you get to banish it to target one of your banished Regenesis and special summon it. And then Regenesis Birth, continuous trap card, send a Regenesis monster from the deck to the grave as cost and target a face-up card, face-up monster your opponent controls. Change it to face-down defense. But during your opponent's turn only, you get to send this card from the field to the graveyard to special summon as many Regenesis as possible from the hand, grave, and or banishment. But you send them to the graveyard during the end phase. So it's very important. It's just one of the ones that during your opponent's turn, you get to flood your board back with your Regenesis monsters. So if they were to like Dark Ruler and then Raigeki you, as long as you had Birth, you could use Birth's effect to bring back all of your Regenesis monsters. And then ideally what you're doing is you're using the Regenesis monsters effect, but they're all going to be coming back to the hand during the end phase anyway, except for Lord. And then moving on to the hand trap. So for the hand trap's pretty staple lineup on this one. Free Ash Blossom, free Mold Chummy, as it's the best card when you have very limited space to play non-engine in the deck because you're mixing this hybrid. And then free Infinite Impermanence. So you wanted to, you could cut down either an Ash or an Imperm to 2 and then cut out the Lord just to keep your deck at a baseline 40. But that is really up to you. So that's it for the entire main deck, moving on to the extra deck. So for our fusion targets, we are going to be playing the 1 Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, the 1 Dark Magician, completely flexible. You can take this out for a second Dragoons if you want to. I'm just showing you the different options that you can play. The 1 Dark Magician, the Knight of Dragon Magic. I like this because it requires a level 7 or higher Dragon or Warrior, which both of the Regenesis monsters are in the form of the Dragon and the Warrior. And then the benefit of something like this one is if it attacks the defense to your monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent, and then when your monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. And if this card is destroyed, you get to special on both a Dark Magician and a Gaia, but you don't play Gaia, so you're never going to resolve that effect. The final Dark Magician-esque monster that we play is the Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. Pretty stand on this one. Dark Magician, Dragon, protect all of your back row, so that'll help you protect your Regenesis Birth as well, which is really important. Then for the XYZs, or the XZs that we are playing the 1 Big Eye, Red Eyes Flare, and Typhon. Typhon is semi-flexible, and I have definitely forgotten the Guardian Chimera, so just going to chuck that one in there. But the Guardian Chimera, because you have the ability to make this through Tomice and Secrets of Dark Magic, and the fact that it lets you use your hand or field, it just allows you to draw cards, destroy cards, do whatever you need to. Obviously, if you do it through the Timaeus, you're going to be more aggressive because you'll be doing it during your turn to push for an OTK. And if you do it during your opponent's turn, you're doing it as a disruption off the back of Secrets of Dark Magic. For the Link monsters, biggest disappointment, why is this not a quarter century? And then the whole extra deck would look on point. I think, not as a like big flex, but I'm pretty sure that is the only card in the entire extra deck. So that's 14 quarter centuries or starlights, and that's the only one that's not. Anyway, so we play the one Unduct. The reason for this one is to turn a normal monster into an effect monster, but also to turn a Dark Magician into a dragon, and that then means you've got a dragon. If you've got 2 Dark Magicians on the field, for example, you can turn one into a dragon, you've got your materials for your fusion plays. It's also a wind, which does come up for access code a little bit later on. Link Spider, the exact same, turn Dark Magician into Link Spider, and it just gives you an effect monster on the field and an earth if you need it for your access code. SP Little Knight, you can play IP Masquerena as well, and if you were to do that, you could take out one of these if you wanted to. 1 Dark the Dark Charmer to work you into a Selene, and then Selene will then work you into an access code, which at the point you make access code would ideally be with because what you do is you'd bring back Dark Magician with your Selene, turn it into an Unduct or a Link Spider, and then you make your access code, and by the point you've made this, you would have had a Dark with the Dark Charmer, a Light with Selene, and then an Earth or a Wind with the Unduct or the Link Spider. The final card that we do play, and again, is completely flexible, is the Mech Knight Crusader Avramax. This is just one of the ones that if you are able to complete the Link Climb, and the Link Climb is very simple, of going into Dark the Dark Charmer, revive a card from your opponent's graveyard, go into Selene. Selene will then revive Dark Magician, turn Dark Magician into Link Spider or Undark, which is the other extra deck monster you need to make the Avramax, and then make your Avramax as a defensive option going first, because you don't really want to be making access code going first. Another option is if you can't revive off the back of Gloomy, you can still make Gloomy as your Link 2, or you might not even need to do that. You just skip all your way to your Selene. The Selene, again, as long as you've got 3 spells in the grave or on the field, that will then give you your 3 counters you need to remove those, bring back Dark Magician. That can then be turned into any effect monster you need to and work your way into a Selene. Or if you just need to get a Dark Magician back to the field because you want to use it as fusion material, you have that option as well. So completely flexible in the extra deck, entirely up to you and your playstyle. I do like the variety that this has, the fact that it can kind of shift into an XYZ. The only thing that is missing is a synchro option. You could play a synchro option if you wanted to, but because none of the Regenesis or the Dark Magicians are synchro like tuners or anything, you will be going out of your way a little bit to make it, and you'll need to be adding in cards that wouldn't really increase the consistency of that element, because you'd be adding in cards such as like Effect Veiler is probably your best generic card to add, but then you're not really getting Effect Veiler to the field or doing anything to help you get into a Synchro level 8s. And right now, without something like a Savage Dragon, the Synchro levels 8s aren't that great. Like, what I mean by that is you kind of want a Baron-esque card or a Savage-esque card to make it worthwhile putting a tuner into this deck right now. Anyway, I hope this is giving you some creative ideas of your own build. I just really enjoy the Regenesis right now, and anytime I get the option to kind of update Dark Magician in a creative way that isn't just rinse and repeat, I do like the option to do so. It's a shame, and also a good thing at the exact same time though, that Dark Magician can only really ever be hybrided with one engine. What I mean by that is, unless you want to be pushing it to a 60 card build, you wouldn't really want to be doing Dark Magician Dogmatica Regenesis. You kind of want to be focusing on Dark Magician Dogmaticas or Dark Magician Regenesis. It just gives you a bit more flexibility, but it also gives you a bit more creativity, as the Dark Magician element of like 20 cards is 50% of your deck, and that is pretty much straight setup. Like, very rarely do you want to mess with that 20 card setup. So then the remaining 20 cards, you need to be looking for engines that are a little bit more flexible. The benefit of something like the Regenesis is the Regenesis engine can be as small as like 10 cards. It could be a little bit smaller as well, or it could be maxed out and play free code and everything else in between. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.